Hello folks, Charlie in Westeros here with part 2 of my early predictions video series for Season 7 of Game of Thrones. Last time round, I talked about my predictions relating to House Tully, Aaron, and Stark, so be sure to check that video out if you haven't already. But for today, I will be taking the story further south and share my early thoughts on all things concerning Team Targaryen. That is to say, I will be making some predictions for Daenerys Targaryen along with those remaining representatives who currently speak for House Tyrell and Martell. Anyway, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into this one. So of course, the last we saw of Daenerys was that she was sailing to Westeros with a pretty vast army, evidently readying herself to take over the Seven Kingdoms. With this fact in mind, many have speculated on the exact location Dany would be inclined to land her fleet, if it can land safely at all. Some have said she would initiate a direct attack on King's Landing, others have said she'd immediately assist the Greyjoy siblings retake the Iron Islands from Euron, and some have even said Storm's End as a possible landing point. While I think these are all options that have some merit, my immediate hunch is that she will in fact successfully land her forces in Dorne, or even the Reach, first. Perhaps this might sound a bit surprising to some of you, so let me explain why this makes the most sense to me. Storm's End is noted to be situated along Shipbreaker Bay. Just as the name indicates, this location lacks a safe anchorage due to the wild waters and dangerous rocks there. As a result, this is the last place an invasion fleet would want to land. King's Landing certainly seems like a good option, considering this would permit Dany to settle the score and end the struggle for the throne fast and easy, but remember what happened in Season 2? Something tells me Tyrion would have been informed of Cersei's usage of the wildfire stored in the city, and, fearing that there might be more of the dangerous product available, and remembering how he used the fire himself against Stannis in the past, he will likely encourage Dany to avoid a naval battle there. Oh, and let's not forget that her horde of Dothraki are pretty much useless off-land, and this also makes an attack by ships against Euron an undesirable action as well. That's not to say she won't try to fulfill her promise to Yara and Theon, or that Euron would even try to attack Dany directly, but I suspect she will assist them against Euron once they help her win the Iron Throne first. Also, I don't doubt that she would be successful in those aforementioned scenarios, especially with dragons, but somehow I think Dany would rather avoid as many pointless deaths on her side as she can. Something a naval battle would bring. I realize that one could argue that last season ended with Dany leaving Meereen with a massive fleet of forces from Dorne and the Reach, so one would assume that she might be intent on embarking on naval warfare, but I think these ships were primarily meant to both show that two of the Seven Kingdoms were under her sway now, and were also meant to act as host vessels to simply carry her substantive army across the narrow sea, and not to engage in battle. Now, with that point made, I think I can only restate that Dorne is a territory fully dedicated to her cause. As a result, she would not only be able to land her forces there safely, but her Dothraki screamers would be able to reacclimatize themselves with being on land once again. Alliances aside, there are a few other reasons why Dorne makes sense. For one thing, I find that in spite of their differences, there are some significant parallels between the books and the show. For instance, Sansa filled in the role of the book character Jane Poole in the show when she married Ramsay Bolton. In the books, we are presented with the controversial and possibly false character of Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, who, with the secret support of Dorne, does launch an attack in the Stormlands south of Shipbreaker Bay at Cape Wrath. Evidently, Dany has the support of Dorne and is about to presumably enter Westeros, but I think it goes without saying that her and Jon Snow are polar opposite characters, and their story thus far, as the Song of Ice and Fire, is absolutely a testament to their dual natures. I do think Daenerys and Jon are meant to meet up, but I do think that in order to heighten that duality, they must reach each other from the polar opposite ends of Westeros. Jon from the north gradually descending south with his wildlings and Northmen, and Dany from the south heading north with her Unsullied and Dothraki forces from Essos. And of course, as far as Westeros goes, it doesn't get much more southern than Dorne. Of course, you might recall that I mentioned the Reach, another Targaryen ally in the form of Olenna Tyrell. The Reach plays a pivotal role for Dany's army because it is effectively the breadbasket, or the most fertile region of Westeros, and was already set up to be of immense importance in this respect when the Lannisters earlier on accepted the Tyrells into their fold. With a vast and hungry army, particularly of Dothraki warriors who normally rape and pillage for their goods, Dany will need supplies to feed them, and the Reach can effectively, and perhaps ironically, satiate them to a degree. That said, I do want to make one thing clear. The Dothraki are not going to be permitted to rape and pillage in Westeros. Remember, they effectively view Dany as a god, and considering this is one thing that she has consistently reaffirmed as one of her core beliefs, I can absolutely guarantee that she would harshly punish any who would disobey her in that respect, including the Dothraki. I've gone on long enough about Daenerys for now, and evidently she aims to bring her forces north to King's Landing, and I absolutely think she will be doing that in Season 7, but I want to leave the focus of that conflict for my last video in this series. And yes, I am sure many of you are wondering what will come of Euron's role in probably confronting the Mother of Dragons, but I promise to cover that in my next video as well. For now, I want to address some other aspects of my predictions centered on the remaining members of House Tyrell and Martell. Evidently, with House Tyrell wiped out in the TV series, a succession crisis in the region is bound to occur at some point, especially once Lady Olenna dies, and I think her end will likely come by the end of the series. Although I don't think this is an issue to be of immediate significance next season given the bigger issues at hand, I do think Season 7 will set the stage for House Tarly as the second most prominent house in the Reach in the TV series, to eventually become Lords Paramount of the Reach. While I can't imagine Lord Randall Tarly, who isn't too fond of wildlings, to be overtly fond of the Dothraki either, I don't think his opinion will matter too much in the long run, especially once/if the wall falls and the Night's Watch is to collapse, and Sam would likely regain his inheritance rights to the Reach without a Night's Watch to serve. Whether or not he forgoes that position in favor of becoming a maester or even another role, however, will likely only be decided by the end of the series altogether. As far as House Martell is concerned on the show, well, evidently the house is wiped out with the Sand Snakes in control of Dorne, but I can't imagine, or at least certainly hope that they won't end with the three unlikable daughters of Oberyn Martell as ruling princesses of Dorne.
You have several, don't you?
8.
8? 8 daughters.
The 5th is difficult. I named her after my sister, Elia.
Considering it was stated that Oberyn had more children than the three shown, I think this is a huge hint we will be meeting at least one more of them, presumably in the person of Sarella Sand next season. Should things follow their course like they do in the books, Samwell Tarly will presumably meet with this fourth Sand Snake in Old Town next season, and I think it would be oddly prophetic, or at the very least interesting, if the respective future Lord of the Reach and Princess of Dorne were to meet in such a unique fashion. That's not to necessarily say that the other Sand Snakes will be killed off next season and Sarella is to inherit Dorne, but I think it would be an interesting twist if this Sand Snake had a rather poor relationship with her half-sisters and father's paramour, in a similar way that Sam has a sour relationship with his own father. At the very least, I think we would all want to see a likable Sand Snake in charge of Dorne for a change, and perhaps this could save the Dornish plot in the show somewhat. Alright, I fear that I sort of went on a bit in this predictions video and I didn't quite cover everything I wanted to, so depending on how much I can fit into my third part of the series, I just might do a part 4 with the aim of addressing your thoughts and comments, as well as those story arcs I didn't cover in their entirety for the first 3 parts. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know what your thoughts are on potential predictions for Season 7 of Game of Thrones considering Daenerys Targaryen and her Dornish Reach alliance. One thing I always enjoy is how so many of you have such fantastic ideas and thoughts for the series, and even if I don't respond, please know that I do read your comments and I'm very, very appreciative of the time you spend sharing your thoughts on the show. Anyway, please subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.